Hi, I made it a little bit early to one of my appointments, so I decided to go ahead and make another video. Well, this one's been on my mind for a while. So, back when I was in the same elementary school as the other teacher I mentioned, there was this crazy art teacher. And I wanted to talk about him for a while. I think he's just so insane, and his way of handling the class was completely bonkers. I mean, I don't know what else to call it. He was really weird. Um, Now, most other art teachers I've had throughout, my school career, and even in college, I had to take art appreciation. They might have had their little quirks or whatever, but they were never like this guy. I mean, they were never crazy or demented or whatever you want to call it. So, let me start out with an example of why I really believe him to be nuts. So, the first thing I want to talk about is he decided one day that we were going to listen to a piece of music. And while we listened to the piece of music, we were expected to draw on a paper with crayons. And this sounds like a really good thing to have kids do, doesn't it? I mean, you would want kids to show their creativity. You would want kids to dip into their imaginations and create, a different drawing for every kid, probably, right? Well, so he played this music, and he said, as you listen to the music, I want you to draw what you think the music is about. Well, he didn't tell us what it was about. He didn't tell us even what the piece of music was called. It was this piece of classical music, and I honestly don't know which one it was, to be honest. So we were sitting there and drawing on our papers with crayons and just coloring and having a pretty good time and everything. And so I have to laugh a little bit because of how crazy this is. Let me go ahead and move this over here. So what ended up happening was he shut off the music at some point, and then he said, okay, everybody stop drawing. And so when he stopped the music, he looked down at everybody's papers and he said, well, most of you got this wrong. And you might ask yourself, how can you get an assignment like that wrong? I mean, obviously, it's meant to be something creative. It's meant to come out of each child's imagination. You would put it on the paper based on what comes into your mind while you're listening to the music, right? No, he said, most of you got this wrong. This music is supposed to be about a king. And none of you, or only one or two of you, drew a king. So apparently, and remember, we were in first and second grade when we were seeing this man, if you can call him that. So we were little kids, We're talking about, maybe 6, 7, 8 at the most, a room full of children, and we're supposed to be drawing what comes into our mind when we listen to the music. I think I drew a bunch of animals because I always loved animals, right? So I was drawing a bunch of animals, and all of a sudden we were all told if we didn't draw a king, you got it wrong. So that's just one kind of insight into how this man was. Okay, so the next thing I was going to mention is he decided that he was going to try to teach us things that were way above our level. And on one sense, maybe it would have been okay if he would have kind of brought it down to like a first or second grade level, but he didn't do that. One day he got really angry because apparently none of us knew how to draw a landscape. And so he said, all of you are drawing a straight line for the ground, and you're putting all the people on top of the line. That was what, like, the vast majority of people drew at that age. And that's very age appropriate. That's very normal. Apparently, he didn't really understand what age we were. So, like a little child, they'll draw a line on the ground, and then on top of the line, they'll have little people or little animals or whatever standing on top of the line. Well, he was really, really upset that we were doing that. So he took us out of the school. He took us to the park across the street, and he had us stand up on this hill. So we were looking down the hill, and he was saying, see, the world isn't a straight line. It's like this. It's in 3D. So you need to draw things, not have people standing on a straight line. You need to show it in 3D. So he was expecting things that were totally age inappropriate, that we had never practiced or known we were supposed to do. I'll give you another example. So he would play these videos for us. And these videos would be extremely boring. I mean, extremely boring. And I think they were meant for high school kids, or maybe even kids that were like in an introductory art class in college or something along those lines. They were not for 6, 7, 8-year-olds. No. So we would just watch these, and I think one of them was supposed to be about like different drawing techniques or something that was just way, way above our pay grade. So one day, after one of these extremely boring videos, he tells us all, well, tomorrow I'm going to show you a video about space. And I thought, oh, finally, he's going to show us something interesting. Because I was thinking stars, planets, space. What is a first or second grade year old going to think when you mention space? You're going to think, oh, wow, space. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, that kind of thing. I was like, great, this is going to be fun. And I was actually looking forward to watching the video about space. So we get into this, we get into the video. He starts playing the video, and it's all about how to draw in 3D in a picture. And how to create depth in a picture. And again, it's not at grade level. It's not something we really understand. It's something that's more along the lines of something that would be for a high school art class. And, at this point, if I watch the same video, I might actually find it interesting to watch. But at that time, I looked at him and I said, Mr. whatever your name is, I don't even honestly remember what his name was. I just remember him. And I said, I thought we were going to watch a video about space. And he looked at me, and he had this disgusted look in his face, and he said, this is about space. So he couldn't place himself in our shoes. He didn't understand that if you say we're going to watch a video about space to little bitty kids, that they're going to think space. Stars, planets. No. So not only was I really disappointed that we weren't actually going to watch a video about space, we had to sit through this boring video about what he thought space was. So it was about, making an object look closer, making an object look further away. And these concepts were so far above our heads that we didn't even understand what the video was trying to say. We were just all suffering through this boring video. And the next thing is that I wanted to bring up about him. So for some reason, he had this really high level of Texas patriotism, and I don't understand why. It was really bizarre. So, and I'm not saying it's bizarre to love Texas or to even have a certain level of Texan patriotism and stuff like that, because I mean, I have some of that myself. I'm proud of the state I live in. I am happy that I'm in Texas, but he took it to a level that was just completely illogical. And so, as part of the normal thing that would happen in probably any teacher's art class, we were singing Texas songs, stuff like "The stars at night are big and bright," clap, 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 that kind of stuff. Or "The Yellow Rose of Texas," or, just various Texas songs, I think we learned like the Texas national anthem or something, anyway, or state anthem at this point, but at one point I think it was a national anthem. So anyway, I think he was really not very kind to the children, and he would just get so mad because we were just terrible singers. I mean, what did he expect? We were all off key. How can little 6-year-olds or 7-year-olds be off key? How dare they, right? So he was really frustrated because he wanted us to sing on key. He wanted us to be like these really great professional singers, at 6 and 7 years old. And I think, as you know, that's not a realistic expectation of little children, right? So anyway, what ended up happening was, at one point he snapped at me or something because apparently I couldn't remember one of the lines or something. And I don't remember what song it was. I was like, oh, I forgot the words. And how can you not have brain farts or whatever when you're under so much pressure? And not to mention the other teachers we were having to deal with at that school. But so, I mean, you're under all this pressure, and he's just an angry old man, and so, I forgot what one of the lines was supposed to be, and he was like snapping at me. Well, you should remember, we've been over this so many times, blah, 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 blah. And I just said, you know what, I was getting to my breaking point, and maybe this is wrong on my part, because, I mean, honestly, children should be respectful of elders, but to be honest, he didn't really earn our respect. In fact, he did much the opposite, acting like a nutcase every single day. So I just said, Mr. Whatever, I really don't care as much as you do about this. Or I really don't care about this as much as you do. And he said, you don't care about Texas? You don't care about Texas? Well, I'm going to tell your parents that you don't care about Texas. And you're a bad Texan. I said, okay, you can tell them that I don't care about being a good Texan. And he never did. And later on, when I told my mom about this happening, she kind of laughed and she said, why would I care about that? You were, 6 or 7 years old? And so I'm like, yeah, why would you care if he, I think he realized that. I think he was going to call him and complain about what a bad Texas patriot I was, and then he realized before he called them that it might not be as bad as he, or it might not sound as bad as he thought it was. So he never did. He never did call them and rat me out for being a bad Texas patriot. But then there was one other thing that I remember about him that was weird. And so he was so obsessed with everything being perfect and like us being almost like professional singers or something, to the point that it was just crazy. And he told me that my voice was a tenor voice. Number one, if he had any musical education, he would know that women and girls are not tenors. That is a designation for a male singer. So even if my voice falls within that range, that's not what you call a female singer in that range. You would call a female singer in that range as an alto. Now, I don't even know if that's my range or not, because this guy was so crazy. But he told me that I had to go and sing with the boys, because he said, your voice is deeper, so you have to sing with the boys. And I said, I don't want to. I want to sing with the girls, because I'm a girl and I want to be with the other girls. And he said, no, you have this voice and you have to be here. Now, I understand in professional choirs they might do stuff like that, but we were just little kids and he's not taking into account the social aspects of it. And some of the other girls started laughing and saying, "Ha, Wendy, you're a boy now." So like making fun of my voice now, because the teacher was telling everybody, in front of everybody, saying that I had a voice that matched the boys' voices. And I was about ready to start crying, because I was like, but I don't want to go sing with the boys. I want to stand with the other girls. I don't belong here. And he had this weird idea that like our performance had to be perfect, and really all the parents would have cared about that saw our performance would be that, hey, they're little kids up there. They're not even listening to the quality of the performance more than maybe a tiny bit, right? So none of that really mattered. And the fact that he would upset and try to humiliate me in front of everybody because he thought that I had a tenor voice. No. I mean, he was so crazy, guys. Now, there was one thing that I did learn from his class that I enjoyed, and I do want to kind of end on a positive note. So, this is one of like the advanced techniques that he taught us, but I actually kind of picked up on this and I thought it was interesting. So, he showed one of his boring videos actually, but this one actually caught my interest. So, the person in the video, they would look at an object, and without looking at the paper, just using their hand, they would start drawing with their hand. And they would try to replicate what they were seeing without looking at the paper. Now, that was an interesting technique to learn. And, of course, the first time we did it, we weren't that good at it. So he put down an object, and he says, look at the object, do not look at the paper, and just try to free draw it, And so, of course, the first time we did that, we weren't very good at it, right? Because, again, we're little tiny children. We're barely out of kindergarten. And he gets mad, and he's like, well, all of you are just terrible at this. Oh, really? All of us are just terrible at it. I wonder why. But anyway, when I got home, later on, I would actually try to practice that, and I got a little bit better at it. And, like, I would look at a flower out in the front yard, and I would try to draw it with my paper, and then I would look down and I would see how close I got, and I got a little bit better at it, actually. So that was one positive thing in a way that I did find kind of interesting. But even with that, he was just crazy. I mean, you wouldn't treat adults like this, much less children, but he just expected us to be on a high school level of drawing and singing and whatever else, and we were just average little kids who, didn't have those skills yet, right? We were just average little kids, and you know how little kids sing. They're not going to sing like some opera singer or a professional musician, but that's what he was expecting of us, and he was so angry all the time. Because I think what he wanted was to work with older kids. I think he wanted to work with adults or older kids. But I guess somehow he ended up teaching little children, and he was angry about it every single day. And I don't really understand what his problem was. But anyway, that's my story about the crazy art teacher. Bye-bye.